Hello, this is John at John's Retirement Travel blog, filming live from the island of Cebu and the area called Moalboal. Um, Today's topic is my new water system that I didn't think I needed. Um, yeah, so if you've been following me, about a year ago, after the pandemic, we decided we really wanted a place in the country. So we liked Moalboal. We'd gone snorkeling there many times and decided that was the place. When we first moved in, we did some work. We changed a couple of new toilets, a bunch of faucets, and other things, trying to get everything in tip-top shape for us. And we thought that would do it. Well, we found out there were more things that would make it better, or a few problems. So we were away for about 4.5 months. And when we came back, well, the water system hadn't been used in that time, and we got all the power on and everything, but somewhere there was one spot we didn't get the water coming. And there was a plumber next door that happened to be at the time. He came and diagnosed us. There was some valves, some connections there that were sort of rusted out, and they needed to be replaced. Now, before we left, the plumber that put the new toilets in told us that that was going to rust out and eventually has to be replaced. So yeah, so he was a good plumber and he knew what he was doing and gave us some good advice. But we were leaving, so we didn't get it replaced yet. The plumber that did the original work that we liked, he was sort of nowhere to be found. His phone number didn't work, so we couldn't really call him. The one that came over that did the diagnosis, he was very busy and didn't have time to work on our system. He didn't charge us for coming over or anything. He was just trying to make things work. So fortunately, since we were gone a while, we thought we'd spend the first night at a nearby place, Casa de Moalboal. And nice place, like I mentioned it in my previous YouTube video. But as we stayed there, my wife talked to people there, and we got the name of their plumber, handyman, and stuff that seemed to know what they're doing. So they came over and they got things going again. Now there was a few problems we ran into. I mean, there was things were working, but not so great. One of the first ones was using a washing machine because it needed flow water to come in and water to go out. Somehow the water was not all that clean, having been in the tanks. So first the inflow wouldn't let the water come in to wash. So we called the people over that I mentioned. They took everything apart and they cleaned that filter out. And then we went to do laundry again, and then the water wouldn't leave the machine. It was sort of stuck in there. So they took everything apart again, and we realized what we needed was some sort of filter for water going to the washing machine. And so we looked at the smaller one that no one seemed to carry them. So finally in the metro in downtown Cebu and by the outlet center, we got this little one here. It seemed to work. It's not like a fine filter, but we also got the idea that maybe we would want to get a whole house filter. So we got a whole house filter, and I've put in these before, but this time we let the plumber do his realm. And it seemed to be, in just a couple days, it looks pretty dirty. They say you may want to clean it every week, and maybe in that case it is. Whatever, all the stuff stuck on the bottom of the tanks, it ends up plugging there. And I guess we got another pressure switch for controller. And then at the very end, it seemed like we need another pressure tank, which both our neighbors had got replaced them recently. This is larger than others. Here's the old one, we're just trying to drain to get the water out of it. And there's another issue that we had, that is, you look at this pipe here, before where there was just a hose coming out there, and it was a short hose. So if you wanted to get water from this tank to this tank, and you had a little thing there, your options were to move the hose from there to the top of the tank. But that that left, as soon as the water was at the same level, you wouldn't get any more out. So you weren't really getting 2/3 of the water. It was just sort of, they're empty unless you went with a bucket and moved it all manually, which seemed like a whole lot of work. So although I was thinking of just siphoning it and getting another hose there, the plumbers wanted to do a better job. So they sort of do a set-in thing, which I can try to explain a little bit. So the plumbers made a diagram of everything and a sketch and what you'd use where. And so like you see this valve coming out of this one tank. Well, if you wanted to get water in a bucket or something, you can open up this other valve here. You can open that up and do a hose here, and you can fill buckets and things. So let's say you're here and the power goes out and you can't get your pump pressurized. At least you could fill up buckets of water there and make that work. And the other line went down to going into the tank because it connects with the other tank in the back. Now, this thing connection, you can shut it off so you don't short cycle here, and that line goes under the house. Now with the filter, you have a filter here, and you have a shut-off valve on either side of the filter. And sort of what's the point of that? Well, let's say you want to clean the filter, or there's a problem with it, it gets too jammed up. You could close the lines by the filter and open this larger line and bypass the filter and still use the water. So that seems like a good idea. It's not the cheapest way to go, but overall it should be the best way to go with different shut-off valves. And a little support there to hold things up. So now I think we're pretty happy that we have a good system. The pressure tanks are a little on the pricey side, but we got the last one we could find in town, so I was happy for that. So you see these two tanks here, the silver one and the blue one. Before, we just wasn't getting water out of the silver one. Now we can get all of that in the other one. So if we get water delivered at 2 cubic meters, we could get it all in our tanks and use it all without a lot of trouble. And the delivery thing, at one time, I think there was a meter and water was coming here. In fact, there is a line from the street that comes into the tank on the side there. And before, on heavy rainy days, they would give us water at night and add it to that. There's no charge or anything because we didn't have a meter. But it's been dry lately, so we don't really have that happening. And other side of the road, closer to town, they have meters and they don't need to get water trucked in, but there's a big business delivering water. We talked to the water department and they said they fill out the paperwork and request to get it back to meters, but it went to the mayor's office and it has to be finished up by the mayor. So we may have water on the line instead of delivered, but the water isn't really that expensive when you look at what you usually pay somewhere for water. I mean, truckloads, about $9 or something, and that's going to last at least 10 days.